guys, today on Watch with Poppy, we're going to be talking about the latest episode of Scandal. So here we go. So right off the bat, we get that there's been a 10-month gap between our last episode and this episode. So for 10 months, everyone's been trying to like deal with life. You know, Fitz has been trying to deal with the fact that he killed Verna, and Olivia's been trying to deal with the fact that Fitz tells her that he doesn't want her anymore. The two of them, of course, are dealing in different ways. Olivia's doing lots of swimming, which I find fascinating, and Fitz, on the other hand, is doing lots and lots of drinking. But it's obvious in this episode that neither is really working. Now we're going to talk more in-depthly about Olitz and about Closet Gate, as I like to call it, a little later. Right now, let's kind of talk about what happened to David Rosen in this episode. So David basically wakes up, and in his bed he finds a woman who's dead. She's been like stabbed to death. He's got this knife in his hand and he like freaks out. He ends up calling Olivia. So Pope and Associates comes in and they're ready to really kind of go into action to help him. I love the fact that Olivia lets him make the choice on whether or not they're going to move the body, and in the end he decides to let them do it because he keeps telling them like, I didn't do it, and Olivia lets him know like, look, you've been set up professionally. So they end up moving this girl's body back to her house, and of course they're trying to figure out who she is and all this stuff. I just want to talk for a second about Huck and Quinn in this episode because they were way too cute for me, you guys. And I don't know that I would think like in a relationship kind of way, just their kind of work relationship, because you can kind of tell that Huck is kind of like training her to some degree, and it was just kind of funny. Like at one point when they move her body back to her house, Huck tells Quinn like, well, we have to make it look like she was killed here, so we need some blood splatter, and he gives her the knife and she's just like, what? And he's just like, you said you wanted to learn how to do cleanup, this is cleanup. And Quinn just goes for it, and the look on her face is like she's kind of excited. You get that she's kind of into it. And so she stabs this woman, you know, so they can get some blood to splatter around, and Huck tells her like, you're a natural. And it was just kind of like creepy, but at the same time, you know, that's Pope and Associates. It was kind of cute though. So eventually we find out that the dead woman, her name's Wendy. We find out that her kind of MO is that she sleeps with kind of high-powered Washington insiders. She drugs them, and then she steals information from them, like classified information or secrets or all kind of things like that, and then she sells them. Now back at the White House, we get that Fitz is really kind of headed in a not great direction. So it seems like he's really been isolating himself, and there's this conversation that goes on between him and Cyrus, and even Cyrus and Mellie, where Cyrus kind of realizes that Fitz is freezing him out, and he's not sure why. So we see Cyrus and Mellie have this conversation that was really interesting, right? Because he tells her, like, you need to talk to him. He's been trying to do this by himself. That's not going to last. Like, he's not going to be able to keep that up. And he doesn't trust us, so he's not kind of confiding in us. The problem is that eventually he's going to trust someone, and we don't want that to be someone else. And so Mellie, you know, in true Mellie fashion, really kind of goes for herself, you know. That's what Mellie does, because that's who Mellie is. Now, I don't think they realize that Fitz knows about Defiance, so they just think he's upset because he and Olivia are not together anymore, and Mellie thinks she's just trying to, you know, help him recover from that. But it's really Olivia who comes to Cyrus and tells him, like, look, I think he knows about what happened in Defiance. And overall, you just get that both Olivia and Fitz are not sleeping, and they're both just a wreck. Like, in that conversation, she says, like, I haven't slept for the past 10 months, and I just lay in my bed, playing that last conversation we had over and over in my head, which is just really kind of sad and kind of haunting if you think about it. So I think once Mellie realizes that he knows, they have this conversation, she and Fitz do, like, in the back of the limousine. She totally threw Cyrus under the bus. It was just like, you should be mad at him. He really kind of pushed us all to do it, and it's just like, no, he didn't. You know, like, did he, like, really press Olivia? Absolutely, and I think Cyrus was totally in for it. Like, she basically made him the ringleader, which I don't think was true. So, I don't know. I definitely think, I'm not saying that Cyrus didn't pressure everybody to do it, because I think he wanted to do it, but I think he wanted to do it just as bad as everybody else did. So, the two of them are headed to James and Cyrus's daughter, their adopted daughter Ella. They're headed to her christening, right? And the big, like, thing is that Olivia is going to be there, which is just going to be kind of crazy because she is one of the godparents. I think she and Fitz are the godparents, which is just kind of like, come on, really? Whose idea was that? So they're at the christening, and the two of them are just like, one look at each other, and they are like giving each other the eye. I mean, like, there was just this moment where they're both holding the baby, and the priest is in the middle, like, you know, pouring the water on the child's head, and it's like the two of them are like just staring at each other. And Mellie's standing there, and she takes one look and she realizes what's happening, so it was just kind of like, You gotta feel sorry for poor Melly at some point though, because I'd be looking at him like, he never looks at me like that. Why? You know, like I'd be mad if I was her, which she is basically. So the two of them are giving each other that eye, like, you know, I love you, God, I want you so badly. And so the christening's over and they head back to the White House. It looks like they headed back to the White House for kind of like a reception. And, you know, even during the reception, you can see Olivia's really uncomfortable and Fitz keeps kind of looking at her. How does no one else in the room notice this? Like, I'm fascinated by that. No one else notices these like looks they're giving each other that are just like full of passion and longing. So eventually, you know, the little party, people start to mingle once James and Cyrus are done saying thank you. And Olivia kind of like finishes off her wine and she's just like, I'm gonna sneak out of here. I'm getting out. And so she heads out and she's like woman with a purpose with her walk. Like she is trying to, it looks like almost like she wants to break into a run. But she's leaving, but as soon as she walks out, Fitz follows her. And I mean, there's just this scene of them two, her walking down the hall, trying to walk really quickly, and him like charging up behind her, like walking really fast. And then he just snatches her into this closet that looks like kind of like an electrical closet. So he kisses her, like he just grabs her and kisses her, and then she slaps him. And then there's this moment where they just kind of look at each other, and there's this look on her face as she looks at him that's just like, are you serious? Like, what are you, like, all after all this time? Like, what are you doing? But then you know that she's gonna kind of give in because she loves this man. And so she grabs him and kisses him, and then it's all about the closet gate, people, and let's have angry sex in the closet, basically. To me, it wasn't really kind of like, I don't know, it wasn't kind of sexy, really. It was just more like, you just got that the two of them, after all of this time, after 10 months of trying to, like, swim and drink away the memory of each other, you know, one look at each other and they can't control themselves, basically. So it was just more this kind of, like, animalistic kind of, like, I don't know, like, base passion that the two of them have for each other that just kind of, like, they couldn't control to some degree. So, I mean, yeah, closet gate, you know, he went down in the closet. I guess there's no cameras in the closet. But then, you know, once it's over, it's like, I don't know, the two of them come out of the closet, and Olivia knows that he knows by this point. And so she says to him, like, I made a mistake, and he thinks she's talking about the closet, and he's like, I did too, it'll never happen again. And she said, no, about defiance. And then he stops and he comes back to her and he says something like, it wasn't a mistake, that was a betrayal. So he says something so hurtful to her though, like he says to her like, you know, this is over, we're done, and like, just because I can't control my erections around you doesn't mean that I want you, like, we're done. Like, I mean, I just felt so horrible for her in that moment. And just the look on her face was just so, like, heartbroken when he said it. And you know he said it because he wants to hurt her. I think they're really trying to show us that Fitz is in his lowest place. He really is. You know, it's like, he might not be able to control himself because he really wants her, but at the same time, he doesn't want her to know that. And he wants to cause her the same amount of pain that he feels that she's caused him. But it was low. It was a low blow, and I didn't love it. And at that moment, I think is when she kind of decides, that's it, I've got to move on. So let's kind of talk about the new guy in Olivia's life, the Scott Foley character. And I think his name is Jacob, Captain Jacob Ballard, right? And Olivia, you know, meets him in the beginning by accident, but we're really not sure about that after what happens later. But they kind of bump into each other at a coffee shop, and he's really charming. And then later, you know, in connection with David's case, she ends up having to go to the Pentagon to question him, not realizing that it's the same guy. And so she meets him again, and there's more flirting and more charmingness from him. And at this point, he asks her out. Later, at the very end of the episode, you see her call this guy back and kind of accept his invitation. And, you know, the two of them have a little chemistry, and there's a little flirty flirt going on. And I'm okay with it, you guys, because you get, you know, like, Olitz is totally in-game. I get that. In the end, it's going to be Olivia and Fitz, but I think there's a long road before we get to that, for sure. And obviously, after Defiance and kind of what happened in last week, I mean, there's a lot that's to work out. So I feel like I'm okay with Olivia getting some love and healing in between there. So the problem, though, is that this guy might be completely suspect. We don't know about this guy, because what we learn is that as he's talking to her on the phone, he's in his little apartment. And then all of a sudden, they pan to one side, and there's all these cameras, and we realize that he has cameras in Olivia's house. And so, as she's, like, accepting his, like, date proposal on the phone, he's watching her on the cameras, which is really just kind of spooky and kind of weird. And so then it becomes like, okay, who does he work for? Why is he watching her? What is that all about? So that brings up all kinds of questions. The other thing that we learn as well is that there is a mole at the White House. So there's this operation that happens, and something happens to the point where it's obvious that someone kind of tipped off these people, these terrorists or whatever. And so that just kind of adds to the whole Fitz doesn't trust anyone kind of scenario. So he's already like having issues trusting Cyrus, but now it's just gonna get worse, I think, for him. There were also several scenes as well between Millie and Fitz in the shower. He's just not in a good place, you could tell. I mean, in the very opening scene, he's like in the shower and she goes to get him like a drink and it's 7 o'clock in the morning. So that's not a good sign. I don't know that I want to know that my president is drinking at 7 o'clock in the morning. Like that would cause me some worry as a US citizen. But, you know, I think overall they did a really good job in this episode of showing you that after 10 months, he is not well. And I really kind of liked the time jump. Like, when I heard that they were going to do that, I was kind of like, okay, what's the point of that? But you get that they're just showing you, like, down the line, you know, things have changed, but not really for the better in terms of Fitz. I mean, he's headed down the wrong way. And Olivia, too. You know, she's still kind of trying to figure out what happened. But the fact that they're showing you that, look, these two haven't seen each other in 10 months, but still, you know, instantly when they see each other, that connection is there and it always will be there. And it kind of shows you this development of what's happened. 10 months of knowing that you killed somebody, what kind of toll does that take on you? We see that in Fitz. So yeah, I really liked this episode. This show is one of those shows where it's like, you know, they answer one question and then all of a sudden there's like 10 more questions that are all of a sudden like unanswered. So I love that about the show, and I love the fact that every week I'm so excited for it to come on. I'm so excited to kind of find out what the next surprise is going to be and to kind of see what they do with these characters, so I'm excited for that. Now, as far as David's concerned, you know, he ends up not going to jail because the police find her body at home. They do realize that David was the last person to be seen with her, but they don't really have any evidence, so they can't really kind of, like, pick him up. So the big question is, who did this to David? Like, who tried to frame him for murder? Like, that's a pretty huge question and a problem, so I guess we're going to be figuring that out. The other thing with David, too, is that eventually he finds this girl's, like, memory card in his computer. He sees what she was kind of downloading, which was the Defiant stuff, but he also finds other information on her jump drive. And it's pretty, like, classified, high-level, like, military intelligence that she's got on there. So it makes me wonder if she doesn't have something to do with the mole in the White House as well. I love, too, the fact that it looks like David and Olivia are now kind of working together, because I have had this theory since last week that David should become a gladiator, so we'll see if that happens. I don't know how long that will last, so. Hey guys, that's it for me this week. Don't forget to comment down in the section below and tell me what you thought about this week's episode. Also, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, people. Go ahead and hit it. You know you want to. Okay guys, I will talk to you again soon. Bye.